everyone. This is Shari Ilson from VolunteerMatch. We are really excited for today's webinar about engaging event volunteers through social media. We'll be getting started in just under 10 minutes at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Until then, please sit tight and you can actually join the Twitter conversation with hashtag VMLearn, VMLEARN. We'll be getting started with the live webinar shortly. Thanks so much for joining us. Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. This is Shari Ilson from VolunteerMatch. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Until then, please follow along on Twitter using hashtag VMLearn. Also, if you're having any trouble hearing at all, let us know in the Q&A box at the bottom left of your screen, and let me put in a little notice there as well. So in just a couple minutes, we'll get started. Okay, well, why don't we get things started? Welcome, everyone, to Engaging Event Volunteers Through Social Media. I am Shari Ilson. I'm the Online Communications Manager at VolunteerMatch. If you're having any volume problems or audio problems, please let us know using the Q&A box at the bottom left of your screen. So this webinar is actually a very special one for us. It's the first session in a new webinar series that we've got at VolunteerMatch called Nonprofit Insights. And this series will focus on big picture trends and tips and best practices in the areas of nonprofit technology and volunteer engagement, and we're really excited. For this session in particular, we wanted to focus on engaging event volunteers using social media. We know that volunteers are a key element to the success of any nonprofit event, and there are a lot of different ways that volunteers are important for your events, maybe even some that you haven't even thought of yet. So today we'll talk about the different roles volunteers can play before, during, and after your events, and how using social media in creative ways can help you engage them. We're so lucky to have our friends from Social Media for Nonprofits and Eventbrite here to lead us in this first session. Ritu Sharma is co-founder and executive director of Social Media for Nonprofits. She is a public speaker, a consultant, and an event planner, and she heads up programming, marketing, and event logistics for the series. Before this, she produced the North American Social Media Marketing and Monitoring Conference Series and started a web development and social media business which leveraged an international team across India, Romania, and the US. So she definitely knows a little something about organizing nonprofit events and the volunteers that are needed to make them a success. Brianna Haig is the San Francisco marketing manager at Eventbrite, which is a leading online service that people and organizations everywhere use to create, share, and join any event imaginable. She's also a committed fundraiser for nonprofits. She first got involved with this when she completed her first triathlon through the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's Team and Training Program. She's since completed multiple endurance events on behalf of LLS and has raised over $200,000 for them just this past spring with her Slap Cancer campaign. And she says that one of the big elements for the success of this campaign were a series of events that she planned. So she has a lot of on-the-ground expertise to share with us. Before we get started, a few logistics. First of all, the recording of the webinar and the slides will be available afterwards, and we'll be sending them to you in a follow-up email within the next day or two. If you have questions or issues, please enter them into the Q&A box at the bottom left of your screen. You can also follow along with the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag VMLearn. And there is actually a Twitter widget at the bottom right of your screen that you can use to participate right from the On24 platform. And that widget should add the hashtag for you automatically. So it eliminates a step. In general, we'll be answering questions that you submit at the end of the session, and we'll have plenty of time for that. So unless there are major issues, or I think that's it. So let's get started. Ritu and Brianna, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great. So this is the agenda of everything that we're going to be covering today on a higher level, and there's 3 different stages that we're really going to be focusing on: before the event, during the event, and after the event that you're hosting. And we're going to take each stage and really look at the recruitment of volunteers, tools you can use to manage day of, and how to really maintain and increase that level of engagement with the volunteers that are involved with your event. So when it comes to recruiting volunteers, one of the things that we found at Eventbrite is a really effective way to increase your recruitment power is by hosting pre-events and giving a place for volunteers to really come together and gather, share their experience with potential volunteers, and really have that opportunity to connect people to your mission and your program and get them excited for all of the events that you have moving forward that they can participate and volunteer at. We found that these are, a really great, effective way for people to engage with new people, give them information, and really, have that connection to the cause and the nonprofit, mission that you have with all of the events that you have moving forward throughout the rest of the year.
I agree. Events are inherently very social, and people get together in these times to meet new people when they're moving to new town and so on. So it's a great opportunity for you to attract new people. As Brianna said, organizing pre-events is a great thing, but leading up to the events and announcing opportunities for volunteering on a regular basis through social media channels is just as important.
Definitely. So one of the things that we found at Eventbrite is there's actually a ticketing life cycle that typically happens with fundraising events. And you'll see that there's usually a spike when you first have your on sale of tickets, and then again really close to the actual day of your event. And it's something to really keep in mind and to work against and to make sure that you engage your volunteers around, because there's a lot of opportunity to really, help push your event and make sure that people are continuing to buy tickets the entire, 4 to 6 week period. So it's not as stressful at the last minute when you find that the majority of your ticket sales are actually happening that week leading up to the actual event. So engaging your volunteers is a really great way to continue to sell tickets and keep this ticket life cycle in mind.
So as this image shows, there's usually most events go on sale between 4 to 6 weeks before the event. You'll see a spike of tickets the first week when you release the tickets, because that's around the time when there's a lot of activity on your social media channels, you're sending emails out, and then it starts to flatten out a little bit, and then you'll see that there'll be a spike in the last 2 weeks and excessively in the last week leading up to the event. And that can be very nerve-wracking for the event planners and the organization. So the key is to involve your volunteers throughout this 6 to 8 week period leading up to the event and helping you spread the word, empowering them, and then trying to influence this ticketing life cycle.
So one of the places that you can really use your volunteers to help get the word out about your event is making sure that they know what to share. And one of those places is your registration page. So you want to make sure that your registration page has all of the information about your event And it's a place that people can go not only to sign up or buy tickets, but also to learn more about what you have going on. So this is an example of one of Ritu's events with social media for nonprofits, and it has all the information about the event, and this is really, a great place to have volunteers direct people both via social media and then just any sort of sharing that they're doing via email in support of your event.
Definitely. This is the very first step you do when you announce your event. You put all your information in here. What we do at Social Media for Nonprofits, once we identify a venue, announce a date, and create our registration page, we create what's called a marketing toolkit. It's a really simple one-page document we create. We put in the registration page information. We make some sample tweets, sample Facebook posts, even some sample small blog and one blog post and one small email template. And that really empowers your volunteers to have a starting point, and then they can always modify it as they wish, but they have a starting point of helping you spread the word. So that's very important to take note of, to create a marketing toolkit as soon as you have your registration page locked down. That's something we did for this webinar as well for our team, to make sure everybody that is helping spread the word has the right information, the right links, the bit.ly links, and so on. So very important to do that.
Great. Which kind of ties into a few ways that Ritu can go over on where you should make sure you're posting your event.
Yes, so once you create your registration page and have set up the marketing toolkit, the next step is to really socialize your event and post the event information and spread the word about your event. One of the things we do first and foremost is we create a Facebook page. A Facebook page for a Facebook event page, I apologize. So we created a Facebook event on Facebook on our community page. So Social Media for Nonprofits has a profile. In that there's an event widget, and we create a page for that event. We invite all the people that follow us. So for Social Media for Nonprofits, that's about 8,000 people. You can send a note out to everyone that's following you. You can send a note out through that event widget to everybody that's on your personal contact. So once we've invited everybody that follows us, we individually, each one of our staff members and key volunteers, here's the key question, key volunteers, we all go to the event page. We indicate that we are attending first and foremost, and then we invite all our friends and colleagues and connections that we think are relevant to that event. And that's really important because it starts to feed the Facebook profiles and Facebook news feed for people that are potential attendees. We also periodically post on Facebook about all the new updates that are coming in, about speakers, about auction items, about performers or VIPs and partners. So Facebook is a great place to really get in front of people. The next one is LinkedIn. LinkedIn had an event widget which is scheduled to sunset on at the end of this month, but still LinkedIn is a gold mine when it comes to LinkedIn groups. That is one of the most powerful ways you can engage your volunteers. You can give them a list of or have them research a list of relevant groups that are in alignment with the mission of your organization. So if you are a breast cancer awareness organization, you can research groups that do the work in the same area, Susan G. Komen, other organizations that do the work in that area. And you can empower your volunteers to go into those groups, post information about your event, and engage in a dialogue, most important. For LinkedIn, the currency is really dialogue in groups. That's where you see the most return on investment on time. Also, I would encourage you to share information that is in your marketing toolkit to be posted on the update or the feed for LinkedIn for all of your staff, all of your volunteers. You want to be posting in your personal updates about the event in LinkedIn. But two key areas, again, LinkedIn personal updates and LinkedIn groups. That's where you see a lot of traction for your events. And in LinkedIn, you have to have a lot of conversations. It's sometimes hard for your staff to do that, and that's a great place for you to empower your volunteers because it takes a lot of ongoing conversation. There are lots of threads in many of these groups where you need to go back and forth to be relevant and to be in front of the audience. And the next place is Google+. Google+ just announced the event widget that is very similar to LinkedIn and Facebook, but it is newer. It has the possibility, one key area which we really appreciate in Google Plus as social media for nonprofits is once you create an event in Google+, and you set up your registration on your registration platform, as your registrations filter in, you can take the email addresses of your confirmed attendees and plug them into your Google+ event. When you do that, it sends an email out automatically to everybody that's email you put in. So that's another touch point for your event to get in front of the people. So it's really important once you create your event registration page to stagger these Facebook, LinkedIn, and Google outreach and promotions. And the key here is to do that 1 week focus on Facebook in different postings, next week focus on LinkedIn, and week after Google+. And once you've posted the initial postings, every 2 or 3 days post once in Facebook, once in LinkedIn, and once in Google+. It's really important to stagger it and not do it all at once, because what you don't want to have is a big blast and then going to very limited posting. What you want to achieve through your volunteers, and that's where your volunteers play a very big role, because it's hard to sustain that on a staff time, especially in a small nonprofit. The key is to stagger your postings on each of these platforms and have a minimum baseline activity on a very sustained and regular basis. You need to find your drum beat. So whatever your consistency is, whether it's posting once a day, twice a day, define your drum beat, what that beat is going to look like, and then just follow through with the help of your volunteers.
Awesome. Thank you, Ritu. We have a couple questions that are relevant to this slide that I thought would be good just to answer right now. Someone had asked about Facebook and the clarification on not being able to invite fans and only individuals having the functionality to invite people to events. And one of the things that you can do, if you have a fan page and you have a place that people can learn about your organization and have liked your page, one thing that you can do with that, we have, Eventbrite has a partner called Event Bistro. You just go to eventbistro.com and you can actually put a widget on your fan page where people can directly buy tickets and sign up for your event directly from your Facebook fan page. So it's actually not even a separate event. It's a place for your fans to buy tickets directly from Facebook without even being redirected. But yeah, that's correct. So there's a couple different things with Facebook. It's the events versus the fan page, and that was the clarification question. So hopefully that helps a little bit there. Another question was related to LinkedIn, and someone was asking if the suggestion was to search for other groups that are similar to yours and post information about the events that you have going on. And I think that's definitely, what Ritu and I have both seen as being really a successful way to promote what you have going on. I know that there's a lot of different organizations that do already have existing groups that have a certain level of following. So taking advantage of that and communicating the events that you have that you're hosting can be a great way to, take advantage of some other gatherings of people that would be interested in an event like yours.
And definitely, and there's another question about staggering for posting every 2 to 3 days on each or every 2 or 3 days. So the staggering is key to stagger. Like if I'm posting today on Facebook, I'm going to post a couple days later on LinkedIn, a couple days later on, and then kind of keep that rotation. So it's not everywhere at the same time, but it's wherever you go, I keep 2 to 3 days, about 2 or 3 days apart on each platform.
Cool.
But if you have the bandwidth and if you have the staffing and volunteer support, you can do it a little bit more frequently. But for most nonprofits, I would say posting on Facebook is about 2 to 3 times a week. On LinkedIn can be every 2 to 3 days as well. On Twitter is actually every 2 to 3 times a day. So each of the platforms has their own frequency as well based on how often you should post on them.
Great. Yeah, and just to clarify, you can create and send events from your fan page. Someone just asked about that, so I believe that is a functionality as an individual. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, so now that you have your event that's posted on all of these different social media platforms, it's really helpful to make sure that you have all of this covered first and then approach your volunteers to help evangelize your event and get the word about what you have going on. Encouraging them to share it through all of their social media networks is really huge because that really helps you expand your reach and gains more supporters of the cause that you have the event around, and make sure that you're really engaging your volunteers to help you promote the event. And another way, in addition to social media, which we've, I think, covered pretty well, is helping them get the word out via email. And something that we've seen a lot of organizations do really well is giving their volunteers a pre-written piece of communication that they can send out, both via social media, giving them tweets to send out that are all under 140 characters and have, the best written possible way of explaining the really great event that you have coming up, but also through email. So if you have an email template that they can use and kind of, craft and tweak how they see fit, that can be a really great way to make it very easy for them to help spread the word about the event that you have planned. Another thing is just, really giving them the opportunity to step up and take a leadership role within your event. Something that's really important when it comes to getting the word out about your event is making sure that you have a lot of different people that have a vested interest in the success of your event. And your volunteer base is a really, really, really great resource to tap into because they have a vested interest, they want to see it be successful, and giving them the opportunity to step up and take more of a leadership role can be a really great way to engage them and get them excited about the weeks leading up to the main event. And then another thing that we've seen that's gone really well is having a social media committee. And I think Ritu can probably speak a little bit about that and how that can be a really effective way to engage people as well.
Definitely. Social media committee is one of the most powerful ways in this climate that you can engage and empower your volunteers. What a social media committee is, basically you pick 7 or 10 of your volunteers who are really committed, who are very socially savvy, and you designate them on your social media committee. And on a weekly basis, their job is to go and like and comment and share Facebook posts and Twitter and retweet on Twitter and post on LinkedIn and engage in a conversation. You will see that on Facebook, now that we have 1 billion people on that on a monthly basis, Facebook is starting to filter your conversations. So all the things that you're posting are not being shown to your audience. The things that do get shown on Newsfeed are the ones that have the highest amount of likes, shares, and conversations on them. So you need to seed your tip jar when it comes to Facebook and Twitter and seed that ton with basically conversation. So you're on a weekly basis, all you're doing is sending a 5-minute reminder to all your social media committee volunteers, letting them know what was posted on Facebook, what was posted on Twitter, asking them to like, share, comment on at least 3 things, and sharing that on their Facebook walls, on their Twitter, and retweeting that information. That's one of the most powerful ways your volunteers can help you in this social media climate. Make sure your message goes viral and gets duplicated on as many news feeds as possible.
Great. So that really segues nicely into our next slide, which is understanding the value of a share. We found that there is an actual dollar amount that can be attributed to these shares that are happening on different social media platforms. And one of the most powerful ones, as Ritu said, that we found with our data to back it, is that Facebook, on average, yields the highest amount of sales and ticket revenue that's generated, and it averages out at about $6 per share. And that's huge because that shows true social commerce. It shows that when people are doing these shares and they're getting the word out about events, it's actually resulting in real tickets that are being sold and more money for your organization. In addition to that dollar amount, it also generates an average of 11 views back to your event page. So these shares are really, really important for spreading the word about your event and knowing how powerful it is when your volunteers and your attendees promote the event on your behalf, because you're really, it's very valuable to use them to help promote in addition to all of the activity that you're doing to get the word out.
And in this slide is you see the value of a share in terms of an event share. So in some platforms, when you're looking for an event registration platform, you want to, one of the things more than ever before now is important is how well that platform is socially integrated. So as soon as your attendees buy a ticket, there should be an option to share that information immediately on their Facebook page saying, hey, you bought a ticket, congratulations, hit submit, and it should show an option, share it on my Facebook wall. That's really important because that's where you get a lot of ticket sales in terms of when you see your friends are going and they're committed, there's a much more momentum of, oh, you know, that's going to be fun. So many of my friends are going, I'm going to go as well.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest factor that somebody considers when they're choosing which event to go to, because they might have a lot of options of what to do that week. Knowing that they have friends that are going to be attending as well is a really, really great selling point and a really big, huge reason that a lot of people buy tickets to events. Great. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about...
Before we do that, sorry, Brianna, before we do that, I wanted to break in with a couple of really great questions that came in that are really relevant to this section of the agenda. So the first one comes from Ken from Pete and Jerry's Organic Eggs, which sound delicious. He made a really good point, which is that a lot of nonprofits, when they're running events and trying to spread the word about events, are looking to reach different demographics, specifically age and maybe other aspects of their audiences. So is there a major age difference or any other demographic difference between people that are actively using social media and the ones that are primarily just communicating through Eventbrite and basic email? Have you guys noticed any differences?
So demographic is not as much a matter of who's using social media and who's using, Eventbrite and email platforms. So the demographic is really a function of who you're serving and who's your audience. So people who are on your email, you probably have a very good idea from the email database as to who your core audience is, and you get that information basically from who's attending your event, who's been part of your organization. But social, when it comes to social, it is really simple to figure out who your audience is. For example, if you go to Facebook, there isn't a golden sort of like demographic, like, okay, this is the demographic that's on Facebook. Because right now, women over 45 are the fastest growing demographic on Facebook. But it depends for different organizations, your mission, who you're serving. And instead of guesstimating, my suggestion would be to go to your Facebook Insights, take a look at who's following you, and in the insights you have demographics broken down by male, female. You have demographics broken down by age group, so you can see what is the age group of people that are following you, and you can also see their geographical locations. So you can get a lot of this information on social channels very freely and very easily available. So I would say when it comes to figuring out demographics and data, always go with data versus gut, because you'll be amazed to see what these demographic and what these data tools have to tell you. Later in the presentation, we'll talk about a couple other tools, and we'll talk about how to figure out the demographics for your Twitter audience and your LinkedIn audience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of really great insights that you can gain through different social media platforms on who the people are that are using them. I think another thing that Eventbrite has that's kind of cool is you can actually see all of your promotional sources and see how people are finding out about your event and ultimately buying tickets for your event. On the back end, you can track the attendee activity. It's one of the features that we have as a part of all of the data management that you have access to. And you can see how many people are coming from Facebook, how many people are coming from LinkedIn, how many people are coming because you sent out an email to the list that you already had versus they found out about it in the newspaper. You can have all these different tracking links to really see what promotions are being the most effective, because maybe for your event, because of the demographic, there's one channel that might be more effective than another, and so that's maybe something that you want to double down on and really put a lot more resources into. So being mindful of that and really seeing, for your particular event, whatever, works for you might be very different than what works for another event down the road. So being mindful of that and being cognizant of what's working and what's not is something to definitely keep in mind. So in addition to all of the insights you can gain from the specific social media channels, it's really neat to see how many people are viewing your page, signing up, buying tickets, and ultimately how much revenue is generated from the different channels available.
Really great point. Thank you. I have one more question that I want to squeeze in before we move on to the next part of the presentation. And this involves making Facebook events or Google Plus events or LinkedIn events for as long as they'll be around versus just sending people directly back to your official event registration page. And what are the advantages of having separate event pages on Facebook and other social media platforms as opposed to having one central place for the event where people are just linked back to?
Yeah, I think you need to have that one place where people are ultimately going to be buying a ticket that you want to direct people to, and that's where, you know, their spot will actually be solidified because they're officially registering. They're officially buying that ticket. If it's a free event, it's the official RSVP. If it's a paid event, then it's actually buying the ticket. And I think that all of these different social media platforms are a great way to spread the word and redirect to that one place, because having multiple places for people to RSVP and multiple options when it comes to placing that RSVP can be really confusing. So having all of those channels direct back to one place is the easiest way to make sure that it's as easy for you as possible when it comes to managing your list.
So this is a question we get quite frequently at our social media for nonprofits events, that why should we create Facebook events and LinkedIn events while we have a registration page? So the goal of Facebook and LinkedIn and Google Plus and other lanyard events and so on is not really to buy, to get tickets there. They're really information sources. So your audience on Facebook is different, your audience on LinkedIn is different, and your audience on community pages like lanyard.com are different. So the goal is to really reach out to people, inform them about the event, but at each of these venues, what we do at our events is we list this, this is an informational page only, please buy, to secure your registration, please buy tickets here at. But it's very important to spread the words at all of these avenues, because it's very hard to spread the word on just a registration page, and it's very hard to go viral on that. So the goal of being on all of these different venues is to go viral and not just reach the people that you're trying to reach, but people that are friends of friends is what really makes a difference. So when you do something on Facebook and you engage with somebody on Facebook, it shows that information to not just the person that you're engaging with, but it shows to everybody that they are connected to. And that's where it's the key, and that's the reason why you don't only have just one registration page and don't do anything else. The reason for going on all these social platforms is to reach out to friends of friends and making your event go viral. At the end of the day, like Brianna said, you really want to direct all traffic to a single place for purchase of tickets, but you're trying to meet people where they're at and driving them to that registration page through these social pages.
Great.
Great, thanks. Let's move on.
Awesome. Okay, so now we've talked about before the event. We're going to move on to the actual event and talk about a few tools that are relevant to volunteers when you're actually on site. So one of the things that we found is really important is making sure that you have a system in place when it comes to entry management and getting people checked in who have registered for your event. And there's a number of different tools that you have at your fingertips for making this happen in an efficient manner. One of them is you can, very simple, basic, just print your list of attendees and check in off of a piece of paper. If you have a very large number of people that are coming, we've seen a lot of people, separate by last name, and different volunteers are in charge of different letters of the alphabet. That way people can, figure out where they need to go and then check in with the appropriate person that's in charge of that particular group. Another thing that we found is if you generate name badges, it's great to have these laid out in an organized manner, usually alphabetical order, makes the most sense. And, that way people that are attending the event can, figure out where their name is located and get them efficiently and effectively, and you don't have to have a huge mess when it comes to finding your name badges. something that we found is really effective when it comes to the technology side of things is some entry management equipment that we have available for any event organizers that are looking to check people in really quickly. We have a couple applications. One is called Entry Manager, and it's an app that's for the iPhone or the Android. And it's a free app that you can download, and anyone can put this on their phone. Once you download it, you actually have the ability to scan tickets at the door just by holding your phone right in front of the QR code, which is the little box that appears on the bottom right-hand side of the ticket. And it'll recognize that unique code and check them in, and it'll sync online with your account, so you can have all of that information of, real time, who checked in at what time. It's another great report that you can generate on, when the big rush was, when people were coming, during the peak times. And it's a really great way to check people in really fast just by scanning tickets. With that app, you also have the ability to look people up on the phone by last name. So instead of flipping through pages and pages of a check-in list, you can actually search. And so if somebody comes in and, Ritu bought a ticket, but she didn't bring her ticket with her, and she just gives you her name, you can just type in the first few letters of her name. It'll come up. You can check her in, and then she's through the door. So that's a really great way to make the process of check-in a little bit more quickly. And it's a great way to, get your volunteers involved with the check-in process and have them really take ownership of a piece of the event. Something that we found is really helpful when it comes to managing your day of volunteers is having different team leads for different aspects of the event. So somebody that's in charge of managing everyone involved with the silent auction table and just making sure that that process is going smoothly. Someone else is in charge of the entry management and is kind of, the go-to person. If anyone has questions about check-in, they can go to that person with those questions. A lot of times if it's a big event and there are a lot of people that are coming through the door, there might be a few issues that people have where they registered under a different name and they're not quite sure how their order can be looked at. You might want to have a separate help desk where there can be a volunteer that's directly designated to help people that don't have their ticket and have some sort of question about, where it is and what happened. That way it's not messing up the flow of people that are coming through and getting checked in a little more quickly. But having a team that helps out with the entry management can be really huge. So that's something that we found is a really great way to, get your volunteers involved and put them to good use when it comes to getting people through the door.
So, a couple other things I'd like to mention here are making sure to have, I don't know if you're familiar, but making sure using something like a Square for on-site registration is very cost-effective, very low cost, and very simple to do on your iPhone or Android. Very simple to do that. Also, another tip I'd mention in the day of event tools and day of event registration stuff is try to capture Twitter, especially if you are a very social organization. Try to capture Twitter IDs or Twitter handles for attendees ahead of time on the registration and put that on the name badge. Right now, that's number one feedback that we have gotten in our last 2 or 3 events is we wish you put your Twitter ID or Twitter handle for your attendees on the name badge. So that's a really growing trend, and that enables people to connect on a social basis and engage in conversation and comment on the event as well. So that's really important to take a note as well.
Absolutely. Great. Great. So, and then the next thing that we found is really great for at the event is making sure that you have a plan for communicating via social media. Giving them the opportunity to have a voice during the event and share real-time things that are happening with each other around your event. So, Ritu, do you want to share a little bit about Twitter and Instagram specifically?
Sure. So if your organization is utilizing, if your organization is organizing any kind of training, conference, or content-driven, Twitter is extremely powerful in that way because you can have a Twitter wall. This is what we do at our events. We have a main slide deck wall where we are projecting all our slides, and then we have a secondary screen where we project a Twitter conversation. You can use a tool like tweetchat.com or twitterwall.com. Either of those two will work really well. And these are both free tools, and you can project a Twitter conversation. And you can enable a volunteer, and we have usually 1 or 2 volunteers in our organization doing this responsibility. Is basically they're sitting in a prime spot with power, and they're plugged in, and their job is to really capture salient moments in the event, whether it's a gala or a conference. They're capturing what's going on in the room and posting that on Twitter, and that keeps kind of filtering through on the wall. So it's really important to do that. But for this, you need to give a little bit of a primer to your volunteers ahead of time. You want to let them know what's the tone of your organization on Twitter if they're tweeting from your handle, what kind of salient points you want. You don't want every single thing that's happening. You really want only the highlights, giving them the Twitter handles of all the presenters, VIPs, of all the speakers ahead of time, so when they do quote somebody in the Twitter live tweeting, they can make sure to tag that person appropriately. So that's really good. Instagram and iPhones and all these newer smartphones have really changed how we look at pictures. So you want to enable a lot of your volunteers to take candid shots during the event of attendees, of presenters, of performers, and post that live on Instagram. Instagram allows you to do a lot of filters and make them very artistic. So something like that is really simple to do. Doesn't take a lot of infrastructure or technology, but it actually allows you to capture your event from many different angles and spread the word about it while it's going on, and really create brand awareness for your organization so they can be posting live using those 2 tools.
Yeah, these 2 screenshots that we have here on the slide are 2 screenshots of Instagram feeds. I think a lot of people are very familiar with the power of Twitter hashtags, but something that is really interesting is seeing how many people are using hashtags on Instagram. The example to the left is from a fundraising event that I actually held, and there was probably about like 25 people, I think, that posted pictures, which was kind of cool to see because I wasn't really quite expecting anyone, and we didn't really communicate that there was a hashtag around it. But to the right, it is a screenshot of Run NMW, and that was for the Nike Women's Marathon that just happened in October in San Francisco, and there were over 9,000 people 9,000 photos that were shared by people that were participating in the race, volunteers at the race, somehow connected and involved with both the cause and the actual event that happened. And it was just really, really neat to see all of the people that wanted to share the visual representation of what the race meant to them. And, maybe it's because they all got Tiffany necklaces at the finish, and that was really exciting for them. But it's really great to see that visual map of, people engaged with the event and sharing that information. When it comes to your volunteers and communicating with them on the day of the event, we found that texting, so that's what the SMS is there for. If you text your volunteers, that's a great way to keep them updated if you're on the other side of the venue and want to give the entry management team an update on something that you need to communicate to them. Another thing that we found is really cool is an application called GroupMe. And GroupMe is a way to do group texts over various cell providers. So not everyone has to have an iPhone. Not everyone has to, be on a certain cell service. You can send a group text to everyone that's involved with the front, registration check-in team, and then send another group text to everyone that's volunteering for the event all together to let everyone know that, there's a post-event happy hour going on, or whatever it is. It's a great way to communicate with people real time and just keep them updated on things if they're not actively checking their email, and texting seems to be the best way to communicate. Great. So we have a few suggestions when it comes to productivity, and I'll let Ritu take the lead on this one. But one of the platforms that I find a lot of these platforms very, very useful, and one of the ones I'm using right now with Twitter is Sprout Social. It's a really great Twitter management tool. But I'll have Ritu kind of talk a little bit about what she recommends with her experience on managing your social media and what platforms to use, because there's a lot of options out there.
So I want to share a few simple things that you can do and give and share with your volunteers and enable them to help spread the word for your event. Hootsuite is a really simple, they have a free module in that will allow you to schedule your tweets. So if your volunteers are helping spread the word on Twitter, you can let them know that they can use Hootsuite, or you can internally use Hootsuite for scheduling your tweets ahead of time. On the right-hand side of tweets is the Hootsuite is the Facebook that I have noted a little small screenshot there. Do not use Hootsuite for posting on Facebook. Because of the edge ranking, it actually lowers your priority of your post that you post if it is posted through an automated program like Hootsuite. So when you are scheduling posts on Facebook, you want to schedule right from Facebook. It is now allowing community managers with profile pages to do that. So it's just a quick show here. On Facebook, when you're writing your status update, when you're logged in as a profile or a community page, on the left-hand side, very left-hand side, there's a little clock which says schedule. If you take your mouse over that, it says schedule or backdate your post. If you click on that, it will show you a date option, and that's how you schedule posts on Facebook. So it's really important if you or your volunteers are scheduling their posts ahead of time on Facebook, to do it directly from Facebook and not to use anything like TweetDeck or Hootsuite or any other platform like that, because it will lower its priority and it will not show up as often. Use Bitly for link shortening. You can generate different links for your event on different sources. So if you're using something like an Eventbrite platform that we use, we generate different links for promotion on Facebook, promotion on LinkedIn, promotion on other platforms, and we run all our links through Bitly, so they are all homogenized, and then we use that for shortening links. And it's also really handy for Twitter because you want to shorten your tweets to 140, and don't want to wait until you get into the Twitter window to find out how many characters you have. So you want to do that ahead of time. One of my favorite tools at Social Media for Nonprofits that I use very extensively is a website called Simply Measured. Simply Measured is a very expensive platform. It's a very good measurement and monitoring platform. Very expensive, but as you can see on the slide, there is a free reports section. So if you go to their website, which is simplymeasured.com, as soon as you go there, on the top there is something called free reports. That's what I clicked and put it over there. It allows you to download 8 to 10 free reports. One of my favorite reports is a Twitter report. This is really, really important. It allows you to download a Twitter report for any handle you put in. So you can put, for example, my handle, which is SM for Nonprofits. I put that in. It shows me a Twitter report of who's following me, which time zone they're in, who are my most influential followers, who have the highest number of followers themselves. So it allows me to decide who I want to engage with to spread my message and go viral. So that's initially somebody had asked a question about how to figure out Twitter followers and get their demographic. This is a free tool to do that. It also allows you to capture all the people that are following you in one zone. For example, if I'm going to Seattle for a conference for Social Media for Nonprofits, I can pull out all the people that follow me on Twitter out of this program, and then I can send them a direct message using Hootsuite letting them know last chance to register, or the conference is coming your way, sign up now. So similarly, if you are a national organization that has presence and events in different places, you don't want to be bombarding your audience with a lot of information about your events. You want to segment that and only target Chicago people for Chicago events and San Francisco for San Francisco events and so on. And same goes for advocacy and spreading the word. So those are some of the tools that we use and we highly recommend.
Awesome. All right. So we've talked about recruiting volunteers and helping them spread the word before the event, what to do during the event to help you manage your volunteers and communicate. Now we're going to move on to after the event. How do you really continue to maintain and increase that level of engagement that you have with your volunteer base, and the tips and tricks that we have to be successful at that? So stewardship and retention is something that's incredibly important to keep in mind. Once your event is over, you don't want to think of it as being over. You want to really make sure that you're continuing to communicate with the people that were involved. I'd love to have Sherry jump in for a little bit and just talk a little bit about her experience with VolunteerMatch and how important this element is when it comes to continuing that relationship that you have with your volunteers.
Sure, I'd be happy to. You know, at VolunteerMatch, we specialize in recruiting volunteers, but the truth is the best way to find new volunteers is to maintain and strengthen a great relationship with your current volunteers. Nothing can parallel the impact that an engaged and dedicated volunteer can have on your organization. Plus, they'll probably bring friends. So, you know, we really stress that stewardship, which is what you would call, you know, sort of building and maintaining a relationship with your volunteers, and retention, which is keeping your volunteers around and finding new and better ways for them to get involved, they're not afterthoughts. They shouldn't be an afterthought. They should be the first thing, they should be part of the overall plan for your event. What are you going to do afterwards? So there are a few quick tips on this slide, and we'd love to hear all of your thoughts as well. First of all, VolunteerMatch has a review and recommendations feature. So when you talk to your volunteers after the event, send them a quick note, ask them to review you on VolunteerMatch. Not only is it a great way to get feedback, but it's a great way to show other potential volunteers that you're a great organization to work with. Also, if you have an email newsletter or some other email list, ask your volunteers to opt into your newsletter list. This event might have been the first time that these volunteers were involved with your organization, and you want to keep them involved, and an email newsletter is a great way to do that. Also, you want to make sure that the volunteers that participated in your event, either beforehand by spreading the word or during the event, a day of, you want to make sure they know how important their work was, that they made an impact, that they made a difference. So find some way of expressing that to them, whether it's with a thank you note and some statistics, or a picture gallery showing all the amazing work that was done, or testimonials from event attendees. Somehow make them realize how important their work was. Also, make sure that they know the steps they can take to stay involved. What are the other volunteer opportunities that you have that could get them involved on a more consistent level or a deeper level? And finally, just don't simply disappear after the event. You need to maintain your relationship with them and stay top of mind. So whatever you do, don't just disappear for a few weeks. You have to get in touch with them right away. And I think that's about it.
Great. Thanks, Sherry. So one of the things that we found to be really, really important, in addition to just being mindful of your game plan when it comes to stewardship and retention, is making sure that you're incorporating an element of recognition. And the volunteers that have helped you out, and they put in the hours, and they are really passionate about what you're doing, and that's why they keep coming back, or that's why they got involved for the first time. Making sure that you're recognizing their efforts and putting together an element of a recognition program post-event is really, really important. Asking people to share their story and let you know why the experience was so meaningful for them can really help bring that level of meaning to future volunteers and people that are looking to continue to be involved with your organization. Recognizing people that really went above and beyond. If you had people that ended up falling into a more leadership role and really stepped up to the plate and helped with the huge crisis that happened at the entryway and were able to help manage that, anything that they were able to do that really went above and beyond and you want to recognize is really, really important, because that way they know that their efforts were appreciated, and other people know, the people that stepped up and really were able to make a huge impact and make things run really smoothly. Social media, I know that okay.
One more thing I would say from recognition, it's really important, something that we do and it has really worked well for us, is after every event we look at who are our volunteers who really went above and beyond, and we go and recommend them on LinkedIn. We write a very nice recommendation about their job. Most of the volunteers that are volunteering nowadays for events and so on, given the economic climate, are volunteering to build a resume, to look for job opportunities. Many volunteers are there for that purpose. So we make sure to to give them a really glowing recommendation, especially the ones that really went above and beyond, that is suitable for that kind of a purpose, so they can be really appreciative. And when you do good by people, when you do things like these, they are much more likely to spread the word about your organization and more than anything, stay continually engaged with your organization. So use LinkedIn to definitely recommend all your Rockstar volunteers.
That's a great idea. Social media is really, really important when it comes to post-event sharing what happened at the event. Ritu, do you want to share a little bit about Storify and how that can be a really great tool to share information after your event?
Sure. So what we do after every conference, and we've done this at conferences, we've done this at galas, and I've also seen that used by many reporters as well. So Storify is STORIFY.com. Storify.com is a really great place to create storyboards. And how we use it internally is at every conference we create a storyboard for that conference. We drop in a conference program, we drop in each of our slide decks, and in between the slide decks, we drop in tweets. So this is one place where you can bring everything about your event together. You can post slides, you can post pictures, you can post comments from Facebook, we can post video files from YouTube. So it allows you to bring in all of these different assets in a drag and drop way. So it's a really good place for you to capture what happened at the event, pictures, tweets, and slides, and let your attendees know ahead of time that they'll be getting this, so they don't have to take lots of notes and stuff. And we usually dedicate 2 volunteers to do that. Basically, they stay live during the event, and as the tweets are filtering in, they grab those tweets and drop them in Storify. And that's another very good use of volunteers, because you need to be on all the time, and it's sometimes really hard in a small nonprofit to have that many people on live tweeting and Storify and so on. So another great way to engage volunteers and really provide a valuable resource for your attendees later.
Great. Yeah, and then just kind of as a closing note, these are all really, really great examples to recruit future volunteers, and making sure that you capture the excitement and the enthusiasm and all of the stories from people that were a part of your event this year. It's really going to help set you up for success for the following years.
Absolutely. And as the event goes on, when you're taking pictures and stuff, make sure to tag your volunteers. Make sure to thank them on Facebook. Give them a shout out on Twitter. That's the currency that they're working for, and that really makes them understand how much you appreciate that they're there and giving them a little bit of a spotlight. It goes a very long way in keeping them engaged with your organization and also spreading the word about your organization.
Great. So it looks like we have about 5 minutes remaining for questions. Sherry, do you want to lead the charge on that?
Sure, yeah. So first of all, I apologize in advance because there are so many amazing questions that you all have submitted, and there's just no way that we're going to get to them all. So I'm going to get through as many as I can, and then after that, please don't hesitate to get in touch with Ritu and Brianna with more of your questions, or to contact VolunteerMatch and on our Learning Center to continue the discussion, and we can always continue it via Twitter. So first of all, and I want to remind everyone that the recording and the slides will be made available within the next couple days, so you'll have all of this at your fingertips. So let's see. The first question is a wonderful one. More and more people are moving to the mobile environment. So what are the different factors involved and recommendations that you both have for spreading the word and managing event volunteers specifically via mobile?
Yeah, mobile is huge. It's been huge for us as a company, and we've really been delighted by all of the innovation and technology that's been focused on mobile lately from a lot of companies. One of the things that we have is we have a few different mobile applications that make things easy for both attendees of events and then also event organizers. We have our Entry Manager app that I talked about earlier, but we also have an app that's for guests of an event, and it's just called the Eventbrite app, and it's a way for people to discover events that are happening nearby. And so they can actually go to the app and purchase tickets through their phone, find out about what's going on, and then share those events with their friends, all from their mobile device. So we've seen that has actually been it's gotten a lot of traffic. A lot of people are finding events on their phones. We've also optimized our Eventbrite website for mobile, so when somebody goes to an event page on their cell phone, it's optimized for actually buying a ticket. So instead of having a lot of the bells and whistles that an event page would have if you're looking at it on the web, it's very specific that we want to make sure people are RSVPing and buying tickets and then sharing those events with their friends via their cell phone.
I agree. Really good points by Brianna. And the other thing is, even though it's not necessarily a volunteer-related activity, but make sure that your website and your event pages are optimized for mobile, and they're not very graphic heavy that don't download, because as you can tell, most of the people are checking your emails, checking the events and stuff on their mobile phones. So it's a really good reminder for people to start optimizing their websites and making, or at least having an alternate website that's a mobile-friendly website.
Great, wonderful, thanks both. So the next question is about engagement and content. So there have been a couple of questions about content, and I want to try and condense them down into one. For engaging volunteers as well as raising buzz about your event, what sorts of calls to action and content have you both found to be most successful?
For content at Social Media for Nonprofits, we found the content that's most conversational and least formal to be the most effective. We've also found that pictures are a lot more, pictures or even typography, which is basically a picture created with the text, is a lot more popular compared to just text. So it's really making sure that if you're on social media, you're really social, you're really conversational, and it's a dialogue, and it's not a platform for announcement or a megaphone. So that's one of the biggest things that I would say about content, is to try and use as many past attendee, past event images, past volunteer images of people having a great time. That will get you a lot more traction than anything you can possibly write. And then know that different platforms are different. So LinkedIn has a much more formal tone. It's more of a work crowd. Facebook is much more friendly, cutesy. So pictures of dogs, cats, kids. Anytime you can incorporate them in a legitimate way, that goes a long way. And Twitter is again like flipping through a magazine at a checkout desk. So making sure that it's really quick. It has all the information on Twitter, that's the only thing they're going to see. So make sure that every tweet that you send out, you remember that that's all they're seeing, and they don't have any context about your organization. So who, what, when, where, and how to buy a ticket is always included in every tweet. Every tweet should end about your event in a registration page link. That way, if you do convince somebody in that short period of time, that they can click on it and go straight and make that decision.
Yeah, I think, if you don't have a registration page that's active at any point in time and you're looking to engage people with a call to action prior to having your event page up, I think that, continually thinking of creative ways to engage them is important, whether it's voting on, the theme of the event, 6 months before the event page even goes live. Having some way to get people to feel like they're involved prior to having your registration link live is great. When you do have your registration link live, what Ritu is saying, that's the most important thing to make sure you focus on for your call to action.
Great. I want to squeeze one more question in before we wrap up. Most nonprofits in the country really are really tiny. They're mainly run by volunteers. They have very few staff, very little money, very little time. If we have to pick and choose between all these platforms and all these tools and all these strategies, what are the top 3 most important things you would say a nonprofit should do in order to engage volunteers for your events?
My best suggestion would be, if you're a small nonprofit and you have limited staff, if I were in your shoes, my best suggestion, knowing how the social climate is right now, my best suggestion would be to engage them in a social media volunteer committee capacity, because that could really pay off in a big way, and it will make, without your message being broadcasted to as many people as it is, all the time you put in creating good graphics or good messaging is of no use if it's not shown to people. So if I were to ask somebody to, if I had only one thing that I could have my volunteers do, I would put them on my social media committee.
Yeah, I think social media committees are really, really important. My number one recommendation would be to use Eventbrite because it makes everything really easy. But I think that, the thing that we really pride ourselves in here at Eventbrite is supporting the nonprofit community and making technology related to event management accessible for the everyday event organizer. And something that I think that, we've been able to do really well is provide people that are managing events with the tools and the resources needed to really, make the most out of their social media engagement and provide them with the tools, and also their attendees and their volunteers with the tools to utilize a number of different platforms as easy as possible to get the word out about your event. And I think that my number one recommendation is to make sure that you're constantly tracking your promotional sources and being very mindful and cognizant of the data that you have access to. There's so many really great insights that you can gain if you actively manage your event registration and use that information to inform you to make better decisions moving forward. And that's something that I found to be really, really key when you're developing your strategy around your events.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so we need to wrap up because we're over time. There's just too much to talk about. I want to thank, huge thank you to Ritu and to Brianna for joining us today and providing such wonderful information about engaging event volunteers through social media. Reminder that the recording of the session and the slides will be made available to everyone within the next couple days. Also, Brianna, if you could jump to the very last slide real quick.
Yep. Sorry, someone had asked about our Twitter handles, so I just put that up for a second.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So we're going to be having the second session of the Nonprofit Insights webinar series on December 12th. All about board engagement, and we'll be joined by Alice Korngold and Brian Breckenridge. So stay tuned for information about that. And you can find out more about all the education and training offerings at VolunteerMatch at learn.volunteermatch.org. We also really urge you to check out Social Media for Nonprofits and Eventbrite. They're both incredible resources for the nonprofit community, as I'm sure you learned during this session, and great partners to VolunteerMatch. Thanks to the speakers again, and thanks to all of you attendees who made it such a great session, and we hope that we'll see you again in future webinars. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. We really appreciated having the time to discuss social media with you.
Bye.